But more importantly, I think that these conversations are really important. As me growing up as a white guy in the South, that I really just wasn't subject to a lot of the same experiences as you. And at the time, obviously, I didn't even realize that, the way our discrepancies kind of affected our lives. So first and foremost, just give me a brief background, your life in 2.5 minutes, kind of where you grew up, stuff like that.
All right. So I'm born and raised Jackson, Mississippi, or around that area. Moved a
Yeah.
little bit, and within like this, the city.
Yeah.
I fortunately had like two very 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 like good parents. We were very well off. Never had to worry about where my next meal was gonna come. Never had to worry about like whether or not I'd be able to afford something. Like we were very well off. So my experience is definitely different than the majority of the black population that lives in Jackson.
Yeah.
So me personally, I was good, but like the where you see like the racial troubles, it comes from like I guess going to like a private all white school.
Yeah.
So, like when I would get in trouble at school, or like I would talk in class, like I would get in trouble when someone like my white classmates wouldn't. Or
Yeah.
like I would try to like be creative, like they would try to like push that down and like say like you're just like you need to do what everybody else is doing, and like all the other kids weren't getting that same treatment. So like
Yeah.
I know my mom said she had to come through by the school like pretty much almost every year to try to talk to the teachers because they always wanted me to like take pills. Like they think I was like had ADD or like all that. So it's just like stuff like that, like stuff. And then other than that, so like being one of the only black kids in my school and being big, like a
Yeah.
bigger guy, like I felt like it was a little bit harder for me to make friends.
Yeah.
Like I did have a lot of friends, but like that was just because like I was really friendly. But I know that like it was sometimes it'd be hard to make friends because it was just like I'm the only black person there.
Yeah.
Uh, I that's like kind of like the childhood part of it.
Do you feel as though, because we had other classmates, white classmates, who I felt were disruptive, did you notice some of them maybe getting a pass, especially because you were at St. Andrews longer than I was? But to me, it seemed like there was a certain element of privilege there where I felt like those disciplinary codes weren't enforced in the same way. And
Yeah,
yeah.
most definitely. I felt like you said, like I'm pretty like outgoing and
Yeah.
but I know like in class, like I would like talk or whatever, like what every other person does.
Yeah.
I would talk and it'd be like a whole problem. But
Yeah.
like other people would talk or like do like ridiculous. I remember people would do like a couple of our classmates I won't name. They would just be doing like ridiculous stuff, like
Yeah.
standing on top of a desk or like making loud like making just weird noises and stuff like that. And like they just get like a stop talking to it. But with me, like they make a whole deal out of it. So like that's particularly I'm pretty sure I know what you're talking about. So like
Yeah.
that stuff sticks out to me.
That do you find that becomes a broad umbrella perception of, especially of black students talking out in a school like that where it's mostly white kids? Did you find that attitude was relegated to you a lot too, where maybe your behavior is perceived as having an attitude issue?
Yeah, most definitely. I would think they would like you said with like Dylan and his brothers, they would always think like they're just problem children.
Yeah.
They wouldn't try to help, but like other kids, they get like more attention from like teachers and stuff like that. Because
Yeah.
like with Dylan and like his brothers, like these guys like didn't grow up in like the St. Andrews like system, so
Fuck no.
like
Fuck.
therefore like they're not used to like all the classes we're having. They're not used to all this, so like they probably would need like a little bit more help in terms of
Yeah.
schoolwork than like another person, or like they might get a little frustrated easier. So it's more like knowing like I guess not taking everything at like face value and just like having like more like knowledge to know that like this kid probably doesn't know like how that goes here.
Right.
It's definitely different from where they probably grew up. So like definitely like they would think it's like intrinsically like part of you. You're just like a problem kid instead of like
Yeah.
trying to actually help you.
I am sure that so can you attest to why you feel it's important when you look at these students, like an individual like Dylan, whose background is so definitively different from my upbringing, from a lot of the upbringing of students at the institution that we attended. Why is it important? Can you elaborate on what you mean by not looking at things at taking things at face value, by not being colorblind?
Well, yeah, being colorblind is probably one of the most like damaging things you could do in terms of like uh like society we are in today.
Right.
I think that's just like dismissing one's past, one's advantages, disadvantages, and in this system that's like built upon, like, for lack of a better words, like white supremacy, and like built
Right.
by people who just didn't think like a person like me should have anything. So therefore, like, I'm like, if you have like two kids, one's black, one's white, and you want to like the people, all right, let me backtrack. But like people always want to talk about like you should pull yourself up by your bootstraps, like do all that, like
Yeah.
that we out, like you just didn't work hard enough, blase blase. So like, but they're not also mentioning about how like the black kid lives in lives in a city where his school system is like garbage. The teachers don't like teaching. They don't have access to they're in food deserts, so they don't have access to clean like good fruit, vegetables, and all of that. So therefore, their background will most likely be worse, and like their upbringing be worse than statistically than the white guy who's he's being compared to. Like
Yeah.
that guy probably went through even if he didn't go to private school, he probably went to the best high schools in the area,
Yeah.
got the best like ACT tutoring, never had to worry about like, am I gonna be able to eat a vegetable today?
Yeah.
And so on. So like you can never look at a thing like face value, because there's like hundreds and like literally hundreds of years of systemic racism that causes like that causes the different experience between black and white individuals.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And so now transitioning a little bit, have you noticed, because I looked up the demographics a little bit of Dartmouth, and it seems as if while the community is a bit more eclectic, that it's probably still majority white, I would imagine, in an institution like that. And have you noticed any differences there at discrimination with higher level institutions? Have you found it's better, worse, different? Can you comment on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'd have to like I can't say anything but like good things about like Dartmouth on my end in terms of
Yeah.
like interactions, I guess.
Yeah.
It's much better than like my private school that I went to back home. It's different. I mean, New Hampshire is different. Dartmouth's the Ivy League institution, so obviously you have like more open minds and stuff like that. But I will say that you have those people that like will say like me and my friends call them captivists. Like they're capping and they're activists. So like
Yeah.
they'll say like Black Lives Matter, like all that, do what you think they're supposed to do. But at the same time, like they won't go like they'll be like a little scared to like come by your table or come sit with you. Or if a party has like a lot of black people there, they might not go because they just feel uncomfortable. So like we call them call them captivists, because they're not really about what they're being
Yeah.
activists for. So like a little bit of that. You have a lot of stuff like that. But overall, I have to say the experience has been like really positive. Like I feel like I've come to my own like as a black person here. Like I'm pretty close to the black community, so like I overall I have to say it's pretty positive.
Okay. Can I, as an active ally, how can I avoid falling into that trap of feeling like I have done enough? Basically feeling like, oh, I posted my black square today. I retweeted X, Y, and Z, so I'm okay. So how can I challenge myself as an ally to continue growing, to work to empower everybody?
Yeah, I say the easiest way to do that, well, stay vocal, like in your circles and all that.
Right.
Second way is just like live through like practice what you preach. Like if you're saying like Black Lives Matter, then like why don't you go support like a black business or whatever? When you get your next when you want shopping for clothes, like support like a black business, buy from there, or donate to causes like that prevent like gun violence. If you really say Black Lives Matter, like be about it, like not only when there's a cop kills like a black person, but like uh be about it like all day. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
there's so much more avenues that like I feel like people want to like spark up like when like a piece of like when a cop kills like a black person, but they're not there when like they're shutting down like another school in the inner city, like
Yeah.
other stuff that like just gets under the radar. Like,
Yeah.
so just be about it like all the time. Don't just be about it when like it's popular to be about it.
Appreciate the fact that you outline it in a way that there are simple solutions. Like what you just provided right there are simple solutions. Those aren't complex, those aren't difficult, but it seems like you're saying there's an element of intentionality in how we behave. And so basically, are you implying that when you say that we have to live what we preach, that we have to think about it often, is what you're saying essentially? Like it's
I'm
got to be at the forefront.
I'm essentially like insinuating like you just need to have a lifestyle change, and like
Yeah.
there's definitely like a couple things that like you can do to like change up your life that like help support like black people
Right.
and like what they're doing, and like but let's say like me, like for instance, like I used to go to Smoothie King a lot. Like that was like my spot to go to. But then I think like senior year or before I got to college, I found out there was like a black owned smoothie, like vegan smoothie place.
Right.
So I was just like, nah, instead of going to Smoothie King and spending my money there, like let me go here
Yeah.
like every Friday or whatever I go.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little bit out of my way, like it made a difference. So like they're like, I know my dollar didn't make the biggest difference there, but like they're pretty successful. So they hopefully hire more black people, and then like there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It just, there's I want to transition a little bit. I know you were active in the Black Lives Matter protests in the organization in Mississippi this summer. Can you talk about, and I know this is incredibly difficult, I'm sure, but can you talk about what this summer has been like for you emotionally with what you have gone through?
Yeah, this is ever since like COVID, like when we've sent home, this has been one of the I guess the like the most transformative years like in my life. Like I kind of figured out what I want to be. Like I feel like I know I want to help people in life. So
Yeah.
when George Floyd was murdered, I was trying to find like a way, like how can I, make a difference? Like I can't just. I feel like I'll just be doing nothing if I like don't actually try to do stuff in my community.
Right.
So in terms of the protest, like I went there, but I wasn't like an organizer. Like
Right.
I give all the credit to them.
Right.
There's like a need for people to organize, but like I decided like what can I do in either my like Mississippi community or my Dartmouth community to help improve the lives of black people. So I decided along with like my friend up here, like we started the Dartmouth Black Student Athlete Alliance, which is essentially uh, like a club or organization where where our mission is to empower black bodies. So like there's not a whole lot of black people who play sports up here. So there's a couple people who are the only black individuals on their team. So I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, we need to find a way to empower them and make sure they have a voice
Yeah.
and make sure they aren't alone, because they said to me that when the George Floyd was coming out, like no one on their team said anything.
Right.
So imagine you being the only black person on your team and no one else saying like, I'm here, I'm thinking about you. Like, I know you're probably going through a lot. Like, so I decided to start that organization. So
Yeah.
yeah, at first it was just like kind of like a club for like people to like come together and meet each other. But then
Right.
like we just started thinking and like going off. And so we have bigger, more ambitious goals, like in terms of like alumni connection, getting black people more access to alumni,
Yeah.
uh, uh, like financial literacy courses, just like doing the most I can individually to help improve like my community. And
Right.
then I guess to expand and like go on, you're talking about like how did that like this summer affect me? Like I remember we were taking exams and I literally could not like stay focused for 30 minutes straight because like I'm thinking about all the protests that's occurring, all the like you know all the protests that are occurring. Like I just couldn't keep my mind off of it. Like I was literally on Twitter like 24/7. I felt like because I wanted to stay up to date on what was happening. This was literally like it felt like I was in 1969 because of so much stuff was going on. So I felt like I needed to be updated.
Yeah.
It was very like I needed to take a break. So like I felt like yeah, this was one of the toughest summers, especially the beginning.
And I I would not ever go as far as to say I understand, because it would be impossible. I can tell you with the utmost sobriety that it was incredibly difficult for me, from my perspective, just to see how intensely these communities were hurting. Sorry, transitioning, not transitioning, not to get away from what we were talking about, but you mentioned sports, and one of the things that really interests me, and one of the directions that we wanted to take this in with the leadership advisory board, was the overlap of using your platform in sports. So actually, no, let me back up. Can you talk about how sports plays into all of this? Because you mentioned it was the Dartmouth Student Athletic Alliance, right? So can you talk about the overlap that sports plays, and what role you think sports play more broadly in the Black Lives Matter movement and advocacy like that?
Okay, yeah, of course. Like me, you, and most Americans, like we all like watch one sport or another. So
Right.
I think like a lot of people will say like, why would LeBron or all these other athletes like why are they complaining about all this stuff going on? Like they're
Yeah.
$1 million athletes. But
Yeah.
what people like this is one thing I feel like I always need to say. What people don't realize is that these athletes are outliers.
Yeah.
These aren't like the standard. The majority of black people in this country are not living these lifestyle. Like vast majority aren't living any type of lifestyle close to that.
Yeah.
Majority of, like if you look at the wealth gap between white families and black families, it's ridiculous. I think it's probably 30,000 to 70,000 or something like that. It's like ridiculous. So like what these athletes are protesting is not like so much their like physical oppression, but
Right.
it's the oppression of all the black bodies that weren't fortunate enough to be 6'8" and 230 pounds and could jump out of a gym. Like
Yeah.
these, like if LeBron was not a super athlete, a basketball player like himself, he probably wouldn't have made it out because that was the only reason he got the opportunities he was. He
Yeah.
was, if you read like anything about his childhood, like he was going house to house, and the only way he settled down is because he was playing sports. If he wasn't that good at basketball, he would have just been another statistic and might have ended up dead or in jail. So
Yeah.
he was literally like one genetic, like his genetics just caused him from being like a rather statistic to being a multi-million-dollar athlete. So
Right.
these guys are outliers. Like so, I feel like they have like an obligation to do as much as they can and speak out for all the other black people that don't have that same privilege.
Right.
Like it just doesn't make sense to me why you would be mad at LeBron saying Black Lives Matter when he very much could have ended up like being dead on the street one of these days.
Yeah. And you talked about just being aware and empowering in your surroundings. Can you talk about what other leadership traits are important for a leader navigating these issues that we're facing, and basically how can leaders be better at being cognizant of these racial issues and being unifying in the efforts moving forward? And I know that's a loaded question, so take your time answering it. I'm putting you on the spot.
Uh, See, like as a white leader, I feel like you just need to be able to listen to, like you'd only be better by like listening to the people you are leading. So like just asking like black people, like or the black kids or whatever, just like how they're doing, like just keep checking up on them.
Right.
And it's like this is why I think like there needs to be more black leaders because like seeing someone that looks like you, like that only empowers you more, like empowers you more. So I just think like just having these constant conversations is the only thing you can really do.
Yeah. And what role do celebrities, political elites, and other leaders like that, people who have a platform, can you touch on the role that they play in this? Do you feel like they have to almost have a responsibility moving forward? I mean, what is your take kind of on that?
Yeah, like I said, I feel like these, like especially black athletes, even all celebrities, really, they have an obligation to like use their platform positively and say like, say it proudly with their chest, like Black Lives Matter. I think,
Right.
like having these super famous people like bring out the message and inform more people is only a good thing. So
Right.
now, like if I post like, some statistics about like how black people are like mistreated in this country, like it only gets to whatever. I have like 2,000 followers on Instagram. It gets to that many people.
Yeah.
If LeBron or like one of the like Serena Williams or Kim Kardashian posted it, gets to 70 million people.
Right.
So now their umbrellas ridiculously huge and can inform. Like you might not change one person with that post, but you might start changing their way of thinking. Like now
Yeah.
they're thinking like maybe like my thought process like isn't like what isn't right. Like maybe I need to like do more research. And like if you do the research, you'll find out like all this stuff that the protesters are saying is true. Like
Yeah.
black people are mistreated in this country systematically and but like physically.
Like Colin Kaepernick. We'll take Colin Kaepernick for example. People cited his salary and they said, well, what do you have to complain about? You've never been oppressed. And you mentioned earlier that obviously that they're an anomaly, and I think that's good to touch on. But do you still find that these black men that have had a lot of success are subject to some of the ramifications of our social caste system? And if so, how does that play out?
Like yeah, specifically Colin Kaepernick, people say like, how are you oppressed? Like
Yeah,
oppressed because he's a black quarterback in the NFL, and he always like even though it's a small thing comparison to like getting shot in the street, but like he probably wasn't even getting. He probably had a bunch of people saying like you need to be a receiver, or you need to
yeah,
be like or whatever, like a running back or whatever. So like him personally, he's probably seen like a lot of a lot of little mistreatment like because of his color of his skin about being a black quarterback.
right.
So it just wasn't like now we have I think like either 10 or 11 like starting black quarterbacks. It wasn't like it was like 8 years ago where Cam Newton and like RG3 were like the only ones in
Yeah,
the league. Him and and it was like Cam, RG3, Colin, Russell Wilson. That was it.
yeah,
So like we're in a new era. So like him growing up probably had to see a lot of stuff like that. So but he's not only talking about himself. He's talking about like the vast majority of Black Americans who can't speak out. So like he's just using his platform as their voice.
yeah. Absolutely. And what do you make of I'm curious to hear because I have my own response to this, but what do you make of the argument that people who are kneeling during the national anthem are being unpatriotic, disrespectful to the country? Where do you stand on that? How do you kind of combat that argument?
Yeah, I've been waiting for like this to talk about this, and
Yeah.
it the biggest thing is that Black people in this country have no like like I'm trying to phrase this right, but like throughout America's history, like Black people really haven't had anything to be proud of in terms of like the American history.
Right.
Because when the Declaration of Independence was signed, Black people were still slaves.
Yeah.
When World War II was won, Black people still couldn't drink out of the same color water fountains.
Right.
In the 1960s, they had dogs and beaten. Had dogs, thrown at them and were beaten because they wanted to do the same stuff you were able to do or your ancestors were able to do. So
Yeah.
like, for me personally, like I'm not a very like patriotic person because like this country really hasn't done much for me.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So to give the notion that Black people need, it's pretty much just like they say like shut up and dribble. Like the
Yeah.
notion that Black people be grateful for like all the stuff that like America has given them or whatever. Like something that I don't subscribe to. So like saying like it's disrespectful, like you're just lucky that Black people just want to see like seek equality and not like revenge because like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
so much stuff that like Black people can be mad about, but like
Oh,
there's
sure.
not. So like to say that it's disrespectful to like kneel for the flag, you're disrespecting our troops. Like I don't think it is because they're first of all they're fighting for my right to do that. Second of all, this country was made by my ancestors. Like this country would not be what it is without people who look like me. So to say that I'm disrespecting this country because I don't want to stand for a national anthem for a country that systematically oppresses people that look like me is like ridiculous.
I wanted to talk about the Rabin Group. That was something that really interested me. I know that you did some work with them this summer, right? And can you elaborate on, first of all, what the Rabin Group is, what the mission goal is, if I'm even pronouncing that correctly, and then from there, kind of what role you played?
I interned there this summer. It was just kind of like a coincidence that this all kind of lined up how I was able to, how I guess like America was, seeing this large movement towards, Black Lives Matter, and I just happened to work with like a policy firm, political policy firm that like, one of their main missions was like to help people that like, disenfranchised people. So as like as a member, as an intern there, like my kind of big project was like I was helping with Stacey Abrams, her movie in in conjunction with like Amazon. It was all in the vote, like the fight for democracy. So essentially, it's a movie about like what is it, voter suppression. So I was help like I didn't help make the movie or anything like that, but I was part of the team that was getting information out. Like I was researching like doing intern work stuff. So I was part of that. It was really fun. It was really informative, and like so it's just it was really good experience.
So you touched on civic engagement, and I just want to hear, because one of the other gripes I hear a lot is people, they complain about the NBA promoting voting. We saw some ads in the NFL, Instagram, Twitter obviously have been big on pushing voting. Why is it important to vote? This is an oversimplification, but
Uh, I'd have to first start off by saying that like I kind of like I can see like in the lens of like a disenfranchised person in this country like why they wouldn't want to vote. Like it makes a lot of sense. Like why should I vote for like two like older white men who like really don't have a history of helping black people? So like
yeah,
I can definitely see like why you want to do it. But given the that's not like you don't get anything by like abstaining your vote. Like they're not gonna try to like come you know get you off the couch like that. I mean they're not gonna be like upset that you didn't come vote. Like the winner is just gonna do what he's gonna do for the
yeah,
next 4 years, and regardless of like they're not gonna care what you did. So I say that to say, uh, given the system we have, voting is the best thing in your society. So I think it's important to vote because now it's your voice to the people you want to elect in office. I think it's important because not only are you voting for like the president, you're voting for who gets to sit on the Supreme Court justice seat. You get to vote for all the other courts, all the other judges who get appointed in circuit court, the, the circuit court, their judgeships. You get to vote on Roe v. Wade. You're going to vote on a lot of other rights that people depend on. You get to vote on like whether or not kids get, put in cages at the border and whether or not their parents get sterilized. Like
yeah.
you're voting on that. So I think it's like I understand if you didn't want to vote, but like a lot of people's lives depend on like whether or not you vote. So if you're in one of these swing states, if you're one of these swing states like Florida or Wisconsin, like I urge you to vote because like your vote means way more than my vote in
Yeah.
a historically blue state like New Hampshire. So that's all I can say on like about voting. Like go vote.
What is it that you're studying? What is it that you want to do when you graduate from Dartmouth?
Yeah, hopefully I kind of figured it out my whole plan like this year, which is crazy. Like so much time during quarantine, I'll figure out what you want to do.
Yeah,
But hopefully, like I get to play professional basketball somewhere. That's like
yeah,
the first goal.
yeah,
Get that out the way. Play basketball for however long I'm able. After that, go to law school. Follow my parents' footsteps, be a lawyer. Do that for a second, and then find my way, into politics somehow, and then, eventually like run for governor. Do
yeah,
that. Run for senator, run for governor,
yeah.
and like if I'm able, run for president.